Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the March Ordinary Council meeting. I'll declare this meeting open at 6:04. I wish to acknowledge the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation as the traditional custodians of this land, and we pay our respects to elders past and present and acknowledge their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the region. I'll remind people that these meetings are recorded and live streamed. I have no announcements as presiding person without discussion this evening. Attendances, apologies and applications for leave of absence. We have two apologies tonight. Councillor Wilding, who is on a leave of absence, and Councillor Ken John, who is also on a leave of absence. We have additional staff in the room this evening with Mr. Alex Snadden, who is Manager of Planning and Regulation. And we have councillors. I understand that we may have some requests for leave. Councillor Burke.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I please request a leave of absence for the April briefing session?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillors, any other requests for leave of absence? Okay, can I have a mover for that leave of absence? Councillor Ames, seconded Councillor Carter. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. We'll now move on to declarations of interest. I believe, Councillor Polifka, you've declared an interest in one of the items.
Yes, item 12.12, just to be on the safe side. I understand that relates to a policy which potentially could see differential rates remitted to people that had constructed dwellings on land that was previously vacant. I may well satisfy some of those criteria, so I'll, as I said, play it safe and see that one out.
Okay. Councillor Carter, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have I declare an impartiality interest in item 12.3. The nature of my interest is that I'm cited as the author of Bassendean, a social history, in the report attached to that item.
As well may you be cited, given your expertise in the area. Thank you. Okay. I don't believe we have any deputations this evening, Mr. CEO. So we'll move on to statements by members of the public. And I believe we have one statement here relating to 12.2, which was decision number 7. Mr. Rod Pernich, if you'd like to come to the microphone and state your name and address for the recording, that would be excellent.
Rod Pernich, 49 French Street, Ashfield.
And you have a statement to make, as sir.
Yes, in relation to item 12.2, decision 7, the proposal put forward by Bob Brown relating to Ashfield Flats master plan.
Okay. Would you like to read out your statement, sir?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. Our proposal was not about changing the master plan, but about recognising there were other complementary ideas of addressing and achieving the master plan objectives, while still recognising the environmental concerns, stakeholder requirements, community concerns, and without jeopardising the grant. The master plan was presented as a concept plan, which implies it to be tweaked, which of course, without of course compromising any caveats that may be attached to the grant. Community concern has been raised about the path being moved further away from the river foreshore, and also the East Metropolitan Regional Council, the MRRC, has been advocating for a linking path along the Swan River foreshore since 2008. In recognition of these community concerns, we are simply asking the Council to consider any alternatives that may present themselves during the development phase that can be adopted to enhance the project. As for the second part of the proposal, separating the parkland from the TEF, we see this as a great opportunity for the town of Bassendean to develop a parkland with shady eucalyptus trees for all of the community to walk under and enjoy for generations to come. We ask that the town of Bassendean advocate for this as the opportunity arises during future discussions, as we believe, as demonstrated by the Sandy Beach development, that the town of Bassendean could develop this into a major attraction. With a little bit of enhancing and considered input, we can achieve something fantastic that will benefit everybody. We have the opportunity here to implement a project that will benefit all the community and leave a legacy for the town of Bassendean for generations to come. So just reiterating, we are simply asking you to vote on giving careful considerations to alternatives that will arise during future discussions with consultants, stakeholders and the community. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. I'd ask if there are any other members of the audience who would like to make a statement. Oh, we have another gentleman, Kevin Bahardi. Kevin, are you in the room? Okay. We take that on notice?
Yeah.
It's not really a question anyway.
I think, Madam Mayor, the email that's come to us today, I think the Manager of Planning and Regulation is going to reach out with a response.
Okay, thank you. So that email, I don't recall that email coming across my email, so it's just to the administration, is that right?
Correct.
Right, okay. Okay, Mr. Aaron, would you like to come to the microphone? Your name, address, you know the drill. So,
Aaron K, 33 North Road, Bassendean. I'd just like to thank the Town of Bassendean staff for working with me with the current ranger issues that I had. They kept me well informed and addressed my concerns and also listened to several of my complaints about the situation. And then I'd also like to thank them for putting forward a case to the CEO and the councillors to give the Town of Bassendean back the green light to hire some new rangers and improve the service that they were providing to the community. So, yes, thank you very much.
thank you, Aaron, and many of us are very, very happy to note that interviews for new rangers have already occurred, so that's excellent. Thank you, Mr. CEO, for fast-tracking that. Okay. Statements, sir? Would you like to come to the microphone, name, address?
Hold on to your hats, it's another thank you. Ben Woodward, 77 Whitfield Street, Bassendean. As all the councillors here and even probably some of the newer staff would know, any time I step up to this microphone, it's got something to do with community consultation or communication to the community or community engagement. And so consequently, the officer who has to respond to that is always Mr. Woods, which sets up the inevitable Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader thing, and, you know, I'm Luke Skywalker in that. And so there have been some changes to Decision 9 of item 12.2 since last week. Through you, Madam Mayor, I'd like to acknowledge those changes and thank the CEO for the additions and the subtractions to the officer report on that, and I would encourage councillors to accept that officer report. That said, if any councillor was inclined to maybe tighten it up a wee bit by adding a time frame for implementation and or some accountability by way of ongoing reporting, you would have my blessing. Good news, bad news, and a lesson to be learned. I'll start with the bad news. We have all missed out on an absolute cracker of a deputation tonight because I haven't had to make it. The good news is, being pretty much a one-topic pony, I'll probably get to recycle all the zingers that were in there on future occasions. And the lesson to be learned is not to put too much effort into that deputation until that week's OCM is released publicly. And apart from that, go Team Humphreys, go Team Nurstead.
Thank you, Mr. Woodward. Entertaining as usual. Okay. Are there any other members in the audience who would like to make a statement? If you'd raise your hand. So if you'd like to come to the microphone, state your name and address. Thank you, sir.
Greg Cuss, 58 French Street in Ashfield. Thank you, Lady Mayor. I am aware of, and I've just spoken to one of the councillors regarding some missing emails that I sent to all councillors asking for a meeting regarding the Ashfield flats, and it appears that they all ended up in everybody's trash can.
Mr. Cuss, I actually searched. I didn't even have it in my trash can.
Okay, thank you. So my question is, we've missed the boat on having our meeting, but I just wondered if there's a simpler way in contacting councillors, because on the back of the Thrive little booklet that the town of Bassendean puts out, there's only 2 phone numbers on there. And making inquiries at the front desk, I was advised that phone numbers to the councillors aren't handed out. So I was just wondering if there's a simplification or whether I had done something wrong in my emails to the council via or for the councillors.
So, Mr. Cuss, I responded, as spokesperson for the town, I responded to
Yep.
your email when it was forwarded to me by another councillor.
Yes.
I know that you've had direct interaction with one of the councillors who's not here tonight.
Yes.
And I attempted to answer all of your concerns as comprehensively as possible, providing links to many of the documentations for your perusal. I also copied all the councillors in so that they were aware of my response to you.
Yes.
And certainly councillors tend to actually, if I have taken the road of responding and providing a great deal of information, unless there's some information that I've left out, then councillors tend to leave it at that. The other thing too is the timeline. The timeline for when I received that copy of that email, and I believe other councillors may have received it at the same time as me as a default forwarding on, that it was a very short timeline between the briefing and this meeting. So given that many of the councillors work full-time and that there is a significant amount of workload on at the moment, I'm not sure that a meeting could have been organised in such a short timeline. So,
Can I just intrude there? The initial send-out was on the 11th of March. I made inquiries on the 17th to one of the councillors, and he forwarded it to the other councillors, so that's nearly 3 weeks prior.
yes, but those around the table here didn't get that email until after the 17th.
It's really why I'm asking where would it have gone wrong, and is there something we can do to resolve that issue? Because I
Okay.
couldn't phone anybody apart from yourself and Ken John.
Okay, so basically in my email response to you, I actually said at the header of the email, I actually listed every councillor's email,
Yes.
which would have enabled you to individually email each of those councillors thereafter. That is published on the website, all the individual councillor emails. So
That's how they were all sent out. That's why I'm just a bit curious as to why there was no
it
response.
may be that there was a typo. I don't know. I really don't know. Not having seen that particular original email, I can't answer that question.
Yep.
So, and then you also sent subsequent questions, which I then responded to those questions as well, which I think you would have got that today.
Yes,
And I believe I copied the councillors into that response as well,
Yep.
so that everybody around the table has the same information that I have provided. This is why I copy all the councillors in, and I copied them in individually by their individual councillor emails, so that there was an absolute surety of distribution of that information to everybody. So, but coming back to the Asheville Flats master plan, you did ask 3 questions which I attempted to respond to today. May I ask, were you satisfied with those responses?
I haven't seen that response, and I did check this evening just before I left. But I'll follow that up. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So, unless there are any other statements from members of the audience, we will move on to public question time. Okay. Would any members of the public wish to ask a question relating to any of the items on the agenda? Okay. So we'll move on to item 8, which is petitions. There are none. We'll now move on to confirmation of the minutes held on the 25th of February. And if I could have a mover for, Councillor Ames. Seconder, Councillor Polifka. Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Okay. We move to item 10, business deferred from previous meeting. There is nil. And item 11 is external committee reports and updates. And councillors, the officer's recommendation there is that council notes the documents from the external committees that have been received upon the reporting, within the reporting period. Do I have a mover for that item? Councillor Carter? Councillor Ames?
Can I ask a question in regards to
You certainly may.
those minutes, and whoever would like to answer, maybe yourself or maybe even towards Mr Woods. Just in regards to the Perth Airport Municipalities Group, how that is going to be looking in the future? Has there been any decision made in regards to how that's going to be looking moving forward?
I'll allow the CEO to answer that one, I think.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. As I understand it, a special council meeting, there's enough members have agreed to calling of a special council meeting to dissolve that committee.
Okay. So, Councillor Carter, you moved the officer's recommendation on this one. Councillor Ames seconding. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Okay. Councillors, we will now move on to the items, the reports, and we will go to en bloc. Now, councillors, you may have noted that there was an error in the numbering. So I'm just going to councillors, with the items that are in en bloc, are there any items you would like to remove from en bloc? Councillor Polifka?
Yes, item 12.12, so that I can vote on the en bloc section.
12.12. Councillor Carter?
Thank you. 12.3.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. And I'll just ask the CEO, Mr CEO, 12.7 with those minor fix-ups, they are going to be done through the administration because they're actually working documents. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so I'll leave that one in. Okay, so councillors, coming out of en bloc, I have 12.3 and 12.12. Now that means that I would have a mover for the remaining items, which are 12.4, 12.5, 12.6, 12.7, 12.8, 12.14 and 12.15. Can I have a mover for those? Councillor Burke, seconded Councillor Polifka. Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. So we'll move to the first item for consideration by council, which is 12.2. And I would ask Mr CEO if there is any further discussion on these points before we move into question time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, not really. I can't put it as eloquently as Mr Woodward did, but there were changes to two of the items reflecting the good feedback we received from the public and at the briefing session. So that was 12.2 decision 9, I think. And we also had a slight change as a result of feedback, I think, from the members around the confusion with the Ashfield flats. So we've made that much clearer, and that was reported back to council in red text, so you can see the changes. Everything else has stayed the same.
Thank you. And councillors, before we move on, I'd ask if there are any questions on any of these items. And just so you know, what I intend to do is to seek a vote on each of these as we go forward until we get to the end, okay? So, Councillor Carter.
Yes, I wanted to discuss or ask a question for Resolution 8, EMRCAPCR.
Okay, so, Decision 8. Which is the financial and legal risk assessment of APCR mobilisation project. And so if you'd like to ask your question, Councillor Carter.
Oh, thank you. What is it?
If I may have an attempt, the EMRC has been considering a capital works project once the waste to energy plant in East Rockingham commences, there is a residual ash left in the chimney stack, and that is currently considered to be a Class 4 waste. So as a business opportunity, the EMRC was putting a referral through to the EPA and doing their due diligence on building a methodology around taking that waste, capturing it in some kind of slurry and then burying it as a Class 4 waste. And that would require the approval of DeWer, because the technology at this stage is unproven. The only other option, if it doesn't go to Red Hill, is, I think the closest one is, I think, in the Coolgardie area. So the travel cost to get the waste from the waste stacks is hundreds of kilometres. So there was a project funded by EMRC to explore that opportunity but given the EMRC and its current state and its transitioning process with 3 exiting members, I understand that capital works project is now put on hold and is unlikely to progress.
May I have a follow-up question? Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. So you're saying the APCR immobilisation plant and disposal solution is unlikely to be progressed through the MRC?
I'm saying it's unlikely to be progressed because of the
issue? Oh.
Yeah, the transition, and we're no longer spending money on capital. The reason the officer's reports is not agreeing with the elector's notice of motion is as you would know, the EMRC is it's a regional council in its own right,
yes,
and an individual member doesn't have the capacity to request what the public had requested on that night. So, and I would imagine, given that the EPA and through DeWer is the governing body, both those agencies will be doing their due diligence in any effect, which would include financial and environmental and community risk.
So one last follow-up. Is any chance of getting information about that when it does happen? Thank you.
Yeah, if it progresses, I can do.
So, if you don't mind, Mr. CEO, if I could just add something to that. It's actually immobilising the product into an inert form, which is then disposed of into a Class 4 cell. And the Class 4 cells have the highest requirements for lining and capping. So it's not something that would be just immediately dumped into a cell. It actually goes through an inert treatment that makes it almost like concrete blocks. Okay, Councillor Palifka.
Just a follow-up question on that. So if that project did proceed, it would be processing Category 4 waste. EMRC currently processes Category 4 waste, so there would be no increase in the risk profile of the waste that would be processed?
Correct.
Probably point of clarification, the waste in its raw state is Class 5. The immobilisation process reduces it to a Class 4 to enable it to stay in the Red Hill facility.
Yes, but what ultimately would be contained would be processed into Class 4, so it's not spending any significant amount of time on site as Class 5.
That's as I understand it. It'll be made inert before burial. That's what the plant, the construction of the plant's for.
Okay. So, councillors, we have other decisions there. Are there any other questions on these other decisions? Councillor Burke?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. In regards to Officer's recommendation number 9 and hearing Mr Woodward's request, is there an opportunity to include a time frame into the Officer's recommendation?
Yes, I'm happy. We now have a new communications resource, and I'm quite comfortable that that'll be achieved before June 30.
Fantastic, thank you.
So given the verbal confirmation that can be accomplished before June 30, do we actually need to include that into the officer's recommendation or not?
I don't think so, Madam, unless council so wish it. I mean,
So
Yes.
councillor Burke, if you wanted to include that, you'll have to draft up a proposed amendment to,
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Yeah.
okay. Okay, councillors, further questions? Or I can work my way through these items, and if you have questions as we come to them. Okay, so the first one is decision 1, reinstate graffiti removal policy. And the officer's recommendation that council request the administration prepare a graffiti management policy for council consideration prior to June 30, 2025. Is that a question, or are you moving it, Sir?
I'd like to move it, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Ames. I'm happy to second that. Is there anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Decision 2, reinstall removed rubbish bins. And the officer's recommendation that council 1 notes that only 1 public litter bin has been removed by the town in 24-25 to date and will not be replaced, and 2 does not support GME 2025-2-043. So councillors, any questions? Councillor Ames, you're moving it. I'm happy to second that. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Decision 3, inclusion of mixed use planning options in higher density areas. The officer recommendation that council notes the town's local planning scheme 11, LPS 11, currently allows for the development of a corner store, and on this basis the GME 2025-0244 motion is not supported. Councillors, any questions? Mover, Councillor Polifka, seconded Councillor Burke. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Okay, decision 4, recognition of Australian standards ratings. The officer recommendation is that council notes the town currently references the relevant design and construction standards for its design specifications, quotes, tenders and other documentation for all of its projects, and on this basis, I'm not going to say it again, is not supported. So, Mover Councillor Ames, seconded Councillor Burke. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Decision 5, reinstate traffic signals at West Road and Guildford Road. Officer recommendation that council does not support this particular motion from the annual meeting of electors. Do I have any questions on this one? Mover, Councillor Carter, seconded. Councillor Polifka. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Decision 6, upgrade of Lord Street. Now, the officer's recommendation on this one that council notes that the town's local integrated transport plan identifies that the town is to investigate alternative design concepts for Lord Street. Furthermore, the responsibility to widen and upgrade the road is not the responsibility of Main Roads or the WAPC, but rather the town, and therefore that motion from the annual meeting of electors is not supported. So, councillors, any questions on this one? Do I have a mover? Councillor Carter, seconded Councillor Polifka. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Decision 7, amendments to Ashfield Flats Master Plan. Now, the officer's recommendation on this one is that Council 1 does not support this motion to amend the Ashfield Flats Master Plan. 2, notes that the alignment of the new path will be determined during detailed design in consultation with the community. And 3, notes that Part 2 of the Ashfield Flats Master Plan document adequately acknowledges and distinguishes historic land use and conservation land use classifications. Councillors, do I have any questions on this one? Do I have a mover? Councillor Polifka, seconded Councillor Ames. Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Decision 8, financial and legal risk assessment of APCR and mobilisation project. And the officer's recommendation is not to support this particular motion. And from the annual meeting of electors, councillors, any questions, further questions on this? Councillor Carter.
Just to make clear that the officer's recommendation not to support this is because A1 is unlikely to go ahead, B2, we will know later if it does. Is that right? And I think it's number 3, it's not our purview.
Number 3 is the overriding one, but you are correct. The other 2 are relevant.
So I'll just clarify there, councillors, that the EMRC is a separate regional council. The councillors elected to represent on the EMRC are representing the Eastern region, not our local council. And as such, their decision-making is independent of this council. Okay? So, councillors, do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Polifka, seconded. Councillor Burke. Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Decision 9, Communications Framework. The officer's recommendation that council notes the administrative changes to the operational communications plans to meet the requirements of the notice of motion from the annual meeting of electors and requests an update via the CEO bulletin once completed. Councillors, do I have any further questions on this one? I don't have any amendments being put forward. Do I have a mover for this motion? Councillor Burke, do I have a seconder? Councillor Ames, anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Decision 10, Support Waste Management Compliance. The officer's recommendation that council notes that the town currently supports social housing providers and social housing managers with a range of waste initiatives, including those outlined in the notice of motion from the annual meeting of electors. 2, request the CEO to continue to educate residents and work with social housing managers and community housing providers in relation to responsible and compliant waste disposal. Councillors, any questions on this one? Do I have a mover for this one? Councillor Ames, seconder. Councillor Polifka. Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. And finally, the officer's recommendation 11 for this entire, for 12.12, the council received the minutes of the general meeting of electors held on the 4th of February 2025. Do I have a mover? Councillor Carter, seconded. Councillor Burke, anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Okay, so councillors, we now move on to item 12.3, Success Hill South Heritage Considerations, which was pulled out of en bloc. So, first of all, I'll ask Mr. CEO, are there any additional comments on this item? I know that there's been a lot of emails this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Only to say that the Manager of Planning and Regulation has made some adjustments, as was discussed at the briefing session. They're in red text for the councillors. He's also been very proactive, responding back to all the questions I noticed and understand. And I've seen emails this afternoon saying that many of those recipients are thankful of the response and subsequent responses to other questions as a result. So unless there's any questions, I would encourage you to support the officer's recommendation.
So, councillors, I'll open it up to questions first. Councillor Carter, you've got your microphone on, so...
Yes, I have. Thank you, Madam Mayor. My first question, and first to acknowledge that I've made an impartiality interest in this particular item, but I request the Commission to continue to discuss it. My first one is relating to the report upon which this is based. There is highly contradictory in that report. Are we going to be able to have a chance to look at that?
Ms. CEO?
We can provide feedback, or even, if so requested as part of this meeting, a peer review of the report before accepting it. At the moment, we're noting the recommendations, so if council have a concern with the recommendations in the report, they probably should be discussed here tonight and an alternate put up. Yeah, I think the overarching, that's in relation to the report, the overarching fact that we will be putting on a workshop and the residents in the area ending up with the design guidelines they're seeking is, to me, the takeaway. But if there's an issue with the report, noting that we are noting it and not adopting it, I don't think it matters. But if you would like to specifically ask for a peer review, then we could do that also.
Councillor Carter?
No, I'm not asking for a peer review. What I'm saying is that the gist of the report is contradictory in that although there's a recognition, a very strong recognition of the heritage and historical value of this area, the report comes to the conclusion that there is not, and that can't be supported by the information in the report. That's my opinion. Secondly, that the report clearly is a
Questions?
sorry, thank you very much, Madam Mayor, sorry. Because the report does not take into the fact that Earls Ferry on one end of Nurstead Avenue and the Thompson Arab Street heritage tree and house at the other end form a complete whole, why are we looking at this in isolation when the whole of that area 13, leave out area 12, which doesn't seem to have anything to do with it and it's just thrown in at the end? Why is area 13 not considered to be heritage when everything, every part of that report, every knowledge of the history of Bassendean says that it is?
I just might refer to the manager planning regulation to see if he wants to add anything, Alex.
Through you, Madam Mayor and Karen, the CEO. The reason that it excludes Earls Ferry Court and or the eastern side of Earls Ferry Court is that section does not form part of the town centre precinct structure planning area. The purpose of this report was in part to fulfil Council's resolution from December 2023, but it's also to provide technical support to the preparation of the precinct structure plan. That area hasn't been identified under the sub-regional framework, the central sub-regional framework from the state back in 2018, nor has it been identified in the local planning strategy to be subject to the precinct structure plan, and that's why it's been excluded from that assessment.
Councillor Carter, did you have another question?
Thank you very much, Mr. Snedden. I would have a follow-up to that one, is that the whole purpose of this is for the precinct structure plan. But the report actually talks about, heritage. The request is for a heritage overlay or a heritage recognition for this very important area. And the argument doesn't say not to have one, it's just that there's no point because we're going to do a precinct structure plan, am I right? And if I am, working on a precinct structure plan surely does not presuppose that you cannot have a heritage overlay over this area.
Again, through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the town's intention is to deal with this matter, and the design guidelines, which is what the Nurstead Avenue residents are particularly after, is via the precinct structure plan, which is an appropriate planning tool to utilise moving forward. In response to a heritage area, the community is after design guidelines. A heritage area overlay whilst it can provide that, it doesn't prohibit the demolition of heritage listed or heritage places on the local heritage survey. There would be currently the listed places, for example, on Nurstead Avenue that are recognised on the town's local heritage survey are only category 3 and 4. They would not require development approval for a demolition permit, and they could be removed. That would be exempt. Even if it was within a heritage area, there are properties within, say, Kenny Street that may be recognised as a category 3 on the local heritage survey, but there would be no requirement, even though it's in a heritage area under the local planning policy, for a demolition permit to obtain development approval for a demolition permit. So it doesn't necessarily stop the removal of recognised places on our local heritage survey. The only thing that would stop that would be if it was on our local heritage list, which generally only recognises category 2 properties or category 1. So, but the intention that the community wants for this area is design guidelines for future development in the context of an R100, R160 is sympathetic to the character of the area and the urban ecology, which would look at the heritage value there, and the appropriate method for doing that is via the precinct structure plan.
Okay. Can I just ask a follow-up question with that, if you don't mind, Mr. CEO, through to Mr. Snedden? when we talk about category 3, I think you may have attended online the same workshop that myself and Councillor Polifka attended. I think it was a year ago. Would that be about right, Mr. Councillor Polifka?
Well, I was there in person.
Yes, okay. So that deals with City of Fremantle that have managed to include category 3 into protecting it through their planning scheme or some other mechanism. Can I ask if I'm assuming we haven't had the time yet to explore that, but is that potentially something that we could explore going forward to see how that particular council facilitated those protections?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we can always investigate how the City of Fremantle dealt with that, but as it stands, the town's perspective, it's only category 1 and category 2 properties that are on our local heritage list, which is the statutory protection.
Yes, sorry, I got carried away on the sideline there because of your discussions there. My other question relates to point 3 of the officer's recommendation, noting that the administration will arrange a workshop with residents along Nurstead Avenue and within the Success Hill South frame as identified within the report to provide meaningful input into the development of design guidelines. Can I ask the timeline for that potential workshop?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll be meeting with our planning consultant Thursday or Friday this week to discuss the potential workshop with Nurstead Avenue residents. At that meeting, I'll discuss suitable timelines, but given April is a relatively short month with public holidays, we'll be looking at sometime probably in early May.
Okay, so we're looking at May. And can I ask, when you say in that the Success Hill South frame, given that many of the residents who have expressed a desire for these design guidelines happen to be in that footprint of Nurstead Avenue from the large property with the tree at Thompson Road through to Wellsbury House, are they the subject of this workshop, or is the workshop going to be expanded to include the entire properties that were subject of this report?
The intentions of, from my view, would be to include the successful frame as a whole and have input from the residents on Thompson Road as well as the residents on Nurstead Avenue. That was my intention as recommended in the report, just to capture that whole Success Hill South frame as identified in the report.
Okay, so I'm interested in how you would proceed given that there may well be very distinct avenues, very distinct attitudes towards one section as opposed to the other. I'm interested in how the administration would deal with that in a workshop situation.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe this is a similar question that was asked after a notice from Ms. Katarina Wolf. It's something that we'd look to discuss at the workshop, whether or not Nurstead Avenue has its own separate design guidelines to, say, Thompson Road and the like, or is there an opportunity for design guidelines to be generic enough that covers multiple architectural styles and references those. For example, our Kenny Street Heritage Area recognises that there's 3 predominant architectural styles, and the provisions within our local planning policy are generic enough to cover all 3 styles.
Okay. Councillors, further questions? Councillor Polifka.
The workshop. So I heard that the workshop can occur in May. Do we need this resolution for that to occur, or is that going to occur in any event?
At this stage, we've committed to it, so realistically, it's going to occur in any event.
Okay, and I note, as the Mayor had indicated, there were emails, and there was a very comprehensive email response that I've seen from Mr. Snadden. I haven't had the opportunity to have a look at that. Obviously, the question that I might ask is that something I should look at? And I guess to answer my own question, probably so, because Mr. Snadden has spent quite a lot of time and effort in providing a comprehensive answer there. I suppose I would move a procedural motion to defer until April
Okay, so you're moving a procedural motion to defer?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Burke. So this is a procedural motion, so there won't be any debate. So councillors, we're going to go straight to the vote. All those in favour of deferring this item till April? Can I just ask if there are... Okay, no, I won't. All the councillors in favour of deferring this item? Raise your hands. So that's carried. Councillor Polifka, Councillor Burke and myself. And against, we've got Councillor Carter and Councillor Ames. Okay. You don't need... You can't.
No, there was no relevance for that procedural motion.
Okay, councillors, we move on to okay, so item 12.9, policy review, asset management.
Councillor Polifka will need to leave the room.
Ah, right. This 12. This is asset management. It's this one. There you go. It's these two. Okay, so asset management. Do we have any CEO? Is there any commentary on this one? I thought it was straightforward.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. The policy has been workshopped and it has been for a briefing session, and we had questions last week, so I'm pretty keen for that to be the officer's recommendation to be moved.
So councillors, are there any questions on this one? Otherwise, I'll just move to the officer's recommendation that council adopt the new asset management policy as attached to this report. Councillor Ames.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's just two-part officer recommendation. The reason why it's come off block is because 12.9, we've got to revoke the current asset management policy being an absolute majority.
Yes, I didn't highlight that. Thank you very much for that. Okay, that council revokes the, yes, you can't do one without the other, revokes the existing asset management pot. Thank you, Councillor Ames. Okay, we have a mover for that first part, recommendation 1, Councillor Ames, seconded. Councillor Burke. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. The second part is that council adopt the new asset management policy as attached to this report. A mover, Councillor Ames. I'm happy to second that. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. We then go to 9.10. Now, councillors, this has a confidential attachment, and I'm just going to ask the Manager of Governance to give you a little bit of a summary of why we have to follow a certain procedure with this. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hamilton. The reason that we do need to go behind closed doors to consider this matter, and it is to do with the local government administration regulations, and it's under 11, and it's with regard to how we record the minutes. So section G, so that particular regulation refers to such matters as the names of the members present, you know, when a member enters and leaves the room, all of those matters that would be considered in the minutes. Now, section G of that, each document attached to an agenda relating to a council or committee meeting, unless the meeting or that part of the meeting to which the document refers is closed to the members of the public. So what that in fact means is that if we do not close this just to see if there's any discussion about the attachment, but we need to close the meeting just for a short period to allow that to occur, and thus allow it not to be to ensure commercial in confidence on a particular matter such as this, which is tender arrangements, so that is not part of the public record. The public can at any time, once the minute book is produced, they can come in and view those, but that information still would not be available to them because it is commercial in confidence or whatever the matter related to in that attachment. I hope that clarifies that matter.
Okay, so councillors, I need a mover to go behind closed doors. Councillor Polifka, seconded Councillor Ames. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Okay. Okay. So, okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have officer recommendation item 12.10. The council appoints the recommended tenderer as shown in the confidential report, blah, blah, blah. Now, do we have a mover for that item? Councillor Polifka, seconder. Councillor Burke, do we have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. We now move to item 12.11, which has a very, very minor amendment to the officer's recommendation. Sorry, let me find it. That council revokes item 13.2 of OCM 19th of 5th 2022. This relates to a resolution of council undertaken during that particular meeting, and what we need to do is revoke that. So that's the second part. The first part is to note the new project reports will be distributed to councillors at least quarterly. So, councillors, are there any questions on this? No? Okay. Can I have a mover for the first part, which is that council notes the new project reports will be distributed to councillors at least quarterly? Councillor Ames, I'm happy to second, or Councillor Burke. Anyone against that? I'll declare that carried. Then we get the second part, which that's a very slight amendment. The council revokes item 13.2 from the OCM dated the 19th of the 5th, 2022. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Ames, seconded myself. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. So we now move to item 13, which is another one of these with a confidential...
12.12 was pulled out.
Oh, sorry. 12.12 policy review Differential rating refund policy. Okay. So, I don't believe there's any added comments for this, is there?
The Corporate Services Director was away last week, so just, if there is any questions, Paul is here now to take questions, but it is pretty self-explanatory.
So, councillors, any questions on this one? Okay, can I ask for a mover? Councillor Ames, seconded Councillor Carter. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Can we ask Councillor Polifka to come back in? Okay, now we move on to 1213. Okay, so councillors, 1213, Audit and Governance Committee, 12th of March. Again, this has a confidential set of attachments, so I ask if we can go behind closed doors. Do I have a mover? Councillor Carter, seconder, Councillor Burke. Do I have anyone against? No. Councillors, do we have any questions on this? Doors now. Okay, so we've got an officer's recommendation, which is in 5 parts, and I have, it's obviously listed. Do I have a mover for this particular item? Councillor Burke. Anyone against? No, a seconder. Sorry, Councillor Carter. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Sorry, I was jumping ahead there. Apologies. Okay. So, councillors, this brings us to the end of the reports because the rest were in en bloc. So we now move on to the notices of motion. Okay. So, councillors, the first notice of motion related to the fire station site. Clearly, I'm happy to move that notice of motion, but firstly, I would ask there is an alternative that's been prepared by the administration. I'm happy with the alternative. It actually captures the gist of what I was after, and I believe, Mr. CEO, the administration are okay. They're in agreement with the motion. The alternative.
The alternative they are, Madam Mayor.
Yes, okay. So, councillors, I'm happy to move the alternative. Happy to take questions as well. It's up to you. Councillor Ames?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All in all, do very much support the alternative motion. Just want to sort of find out how, and if that's through yourself or through you to the CEO, just regarding the second dot point on point 2, which is seeks expressions of interest from the private and or not-profit sector, etc., how that sort of factors in. Is that going to be done immediately? Is that going to be done once we've got the opportunity to take hold of the site? It seems to be everything's all in one hit, but we don't want to sort of put the cart before the horse or vice versa. I just want to find out how that thought process has been structured.
Yeah, thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. So the thought process is that we would explore the option and a business case for council, and if we considered there to be no risk and good upside, we may not go to seek expression of interest, but given that we aren't that financially endowed with cash funds and we've got our long-term financial plan without this project in it, the ultimate thing that we all want is that site to be developed that has residential and a component of community use, as well as retaining its heritage character. So the alternate gives us the opportunity to do both, whereas the original motion sort of left us to, if we, for instance, if we go in there and find that the contamination is terribly expensive, but we get it for $1, and we're not developers, so we could put ourselves at risk, whereas having the other option, and to be honest, we've already got expressions of interest from the private sector, and we have started negotiations with the DPLH.
Excellent. So, councillors, Councillor Polifka?
Yeah, so just in terms of that process with the negotiation with private developers, are they able to approach the state in their own right, or do they require the town to be the conduit to allow this to occur?
We're unsure yet. I think once the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage has an appetite, so what we know to date is that DFIS do not have the authority under their Act to dispose of the site. That's why it's sat there. But the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage has a higher authority and can, if there's community benefit and there's money coming back to the state, they could enable some kind of disposal. So the meeting with DPLH and ultimately the Minister Carey, will have the opportunity to make sure that site is activated. So at this stage, we have expressed an interest, and we have a third-party private operator that's well known to Bassendean, that has the entire site from Parker Street down to Old Perth Road and to Guildford Road. That entire site is currently being looked at with the two landowners and the developer, and they would like to incorporate the Parker Street site into that to make it a larger development. So they're keen for us to try and free that site up for them to acquire on the open market, but we want to make sure that the opportunity is explored by us before we pass it on.
And just in terms of that, I suppose the state government would essentially be deputising the town to ensure that that community benefit is maintained, where possibly the structure itself is maintained, as opposed to, I suppose, freeing up a large amalgamated lot of land.
Now, there's a couple of caveats on the site, one being heritage, which is a non-negotiable. The other one is the word possible contamination, which there has not been a detailed contamination assessment. So what is below the ground is important, and it comes with some risk, I would imagine, for us. But if it was part of a larger development block, I would consider that private enterprise would be able to take more risk and do something unique with the site without the heritage being lost. The beauty about us being involved at this stage is that if we can ask the minister to put conditions as part of a sale to a private enterprise, such as they don't land bank it, and two, that the community benefit is realised as well as the heritage asset. So yes, there might be residential there, but we might end up with an art centre or some kind of community space.
Just in terms of your comment as to land banking, so it would be envisaged perhaps that there'd be a condition that unless a development occurs within a number of years, 3 years or something, that then the land, if it were obtained in that way, it would be remitted to whoever had owned it previously, being the state or the town?
That's not uncommon. normally two years for a development application to come across the desk. Now, given where we are in metropolitan Perth at the moment, you'd probably want to extend that to 3 years to allow the developer to do the due diligence around contamination and then time to plan before putting a DA in, but you would think 3 to 4 years would be the maximum.
Okay, councillors, I'm obviously moving the alternative. Do I have a seconder, Councillor Plifka? Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Okay. And we now move to 13.2, dogs on lead in public. And I note that the CEO has been very proactive in this one as well. So, councillors, I'm happy to move this. Again, if there's any questions. Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Ames, do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. We now move to 13.3, which is the National General Assembly Conference motion to restrict the sale of second generation anticoagulant rodenticides. Now again, there is a slight amendment where the officers have wordsmithed this with a few little changes, or tweaks, which I agree with. And councillors, do I have any questions on this one? Otherwise, I'll move it. Do I have a second? Oh, Councillor Plifka.
So just to be clear, the nasty things that we're looking to agitate against, the anticoagulant rodenticides, these are things that cause the animal to effectively just bleed to death.
They are, no, okay. There are 2 generations of these poisons. The second generation don't break down as quickly and create secondary poisoning in a whole host of wildlife. For instance, owls. And you would have heard about the movement, councils calling themselves owl-friendly, by banning these rat baits, which we banned in 2018 because we were ahead of ourselves. But they are still widely available through various outlets, supermarkets, hardware. So taking this to the National General Assembly is an attempt to get some movement on the federal level. So councillors, I'm happy to move the alternative that the officers have put up. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Burke? Do I have anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Okay, so councillors, we have no notices of motion for the next meeting, or at least not that I know of. We have no urgent business. Confidential business has been dealt with. I'll bring us to the closure of the meeting at 7:12, if I'm reading the clock right. And the next ordinary council meeting will be held on Tuesday, the 22nd of April, 2025, commencing at 6 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance and for your hard work, and thank you, Mr. CEO and staff, for everything you've put into these agendas.
Thank you.